the subscribe button and the notification bell right now so you never miss an episode of Operation Truth. Send us an email, ask your questions, and very possibly we'll address your question on the air.
Operation Truth, the show they don't want you to see. Now, here's your host, Lou.
My name is Lou Palumbo. This is Operation Truth. With me, as always, is my co-host, Tom Fuentes. If you listened to the last episode, a lot of it was focused on what is transpiring in Israel and the Middle East in general. No secret, Hamas staged an invasion of Israel. There's no other way to call it. It is what it is. The question that a lot of people are curious about is, how did that occur with such an alleged high-level, sophisticated intelligence community that Israel claims to have had, and even ours? And Tom has mentioned prior, the British, they have their own intelligence community that's quite sophisticated. First thing I want to talk about is this Speaker of the House issue we have going on. I think the timing for the derailment of the Speaker of the House couldn't have been worse. There's no way to predict this. We're now trying to figure out who the Speaker of the House is going to be. And it looks like at the top of the list for the Republicans is Jim Jordan, who I happen to have an appreciation for, primarily because he seems to be preoccupied with seeking the truth as to exactly what took place with Hunter Biden and his father, and this rather, I would say, convoluted relationship with China, Russia, and the Ukraine. But Tom, last episode, we were talking about monies and Iran. And what went on with Biden and the $6 billion? Give us a little background on this.
Well, the promise was that, we would let Iran have $6 billion. Part of it was their embargoed money, but let them have it in exchange for the hostages that they were holding. Now, they're claiming, the administration is claiming that, well, that money couldn't have gone to the attacks in Israel because we haven't even sent it to them yet. Well, that's okay. But over the last couple of years, we've been sending them incrementally billions of dollars for other reasons. So they've already been getting money from us. And in this case, the fact that we promised it was like, oh, great, we're going to get this money. Let's go ahead and go ahead and spend the resources to do these attacks. And I think that, it's kind of irrelevant whether they actually got that $6 billion yet or not. The fact is they expected to get it, and that's good enough for them to launch terrorist activities.
Tom, let me ask you, you mentioned about us giving Iran billions of dollars in the past few years, independent of the $6 billion that was earmarked as part of a deal to free 5 hostages. Do you know specifically why in God's name would we give a country that's clearly so adversarial to us anything? I know that's a common practice in this country. It isn't just Iran who's adversarial that we give money to. There are other countries we do the same thing with. What specifically was the purpose of this money, Tom?
Lou, I have a hard time figuring it out, what what our administration thinks they're going to get out of these deals, or what they're trying to do, or why they're trying to do it. And I don't care whether it's, the southern border is wide open, so let all the terrorists in that want to come in, or do all these other. It seems like every decision made by the Biden administration has a negative effect on the U.S. one way or another, either immediately or down the road, like abandoning the weapons in Afghanistan, $85 billion in weaponry, or some of the other things that we've done that Biden has ordered to be done are unbelievably dangerous. And now we're seeing the results of that. At the time those weapons were left, a lot of people were saying, that's going to come back to haunt us. You're making the Taliban the richest arms merchants in the world. Now we're seeing that those weapons are showing up. Or the weapons that we've sent to Ukraine with absolutely no supervision, no accounting, nobody studying the money or the equipment that we've sent, that it actually went for the purposes that we sent it for. And now we're seeing that, well, a lot of those weapons have shown up in Africa, Mexico, other Middle Eastern countries, and now probably in the hands of Hamas. So, we're looking at an administration that if they were trying to commit suicide for the United States, they're well on the way to doing it. And it doesn't seem like anybody anywhere is telling them they have to stop. Nobody has forced them to stop.
You know, Tom, in the last episode we did of the podcast, I have a real concern that the country may be spreading itself entirely too thin, that we are just involved in so many different places, supporting so many different exercises. What's going on with Taiwan, Tom? I mean, what are we doing in Taiwan, for example, as a result of our concern of China invading?
Well, I think it's right now we've just been on a cruise control with regard to Taiwan. We send them stuff, we send them some weaponry or some aid or whatever, but so far China hasn't indicated an immediate attack on Taiwan to try to absorb Taiwan. So I think that pretty much, in a way, nothing has changed in Taiwan in the last year or two, probably.
But, Tom, the reason I mention it is because it's another front. For example, we're already sending them aid in some form of another. My question is, hypothetically, what if China decides to invade Taiwan tomorrow? How many fronts does this country or this government intend on entertaining that we're going to support? I don't understand what we're doing here, folks. And, in the Ukraine, to me, it's rather simple. I would never suggest that we abandon the Ukraine, even though I don't believe, as Nikki Haley referred to, it's not a cornerstone of this country by any means. But why are we disproportionately supporting, the Ukraine? There are 29 of the 31 NATO nations on the continent of Europe. The other discussion, we've not heard a peep out of France or the UK or Germany regarding this episode of this incident in Israel. I'm curious to know why we're getting little or no noise from that. Now, we both know there's a problem in France. Am I correct, Tom, as far as population?
Yeah, you have France and Germany and a couple of countries in Europe that are experiencing that kind of trouble. But to get back to Ukraine, to try to say, well, why are we sending them all that stuff? Why is Joe Biden committed to giving them everything they ask for? And I look at that now. This is my cynical mind based on 30 years almost in the FBI, that Biden received millions of dollars from the Ukraine, and now's the payback. Now's the quid pro quo, that they want more, they want aid, they want us to fund their government. We're paying their pensions, we're paying their salaries, in addition to the military equipment that we're sending over. And large parts of both are being stolen right out from under whoever receives it. And I look at that I think Joe Biden is compromised by the Ukraine. He's been compromised from day one. And this is part of that real, I think. I think he's going along with whatever they want because of the bribery that he's accepted on behalf of himself or the family.
Yeah, and that conversation continues in the House of Representatives. Jim Jordan and Comer, I believe it is, right? James Comer from Kentucky. Comer. Right. They're continuing to pursue this discussion as to what exactly took place with Hunter Biden and his father in these countries. I mean, we're aware that mysteriously the wife of a Russian oligarch, if I'm correct, sent millions of dollars to Hunter Biden. Why? Excuse me.
Well, it paid off for her, Lou, because she sends millions of dollars. Later, when Russia goes into Ukraine, the Russian military, the U.S. imposes sanctions on all of the dozens of oligarchs around the world. We have their Yahtsees. I know one was in the harbor in Fiji that we sent agents to take control of. And amazingly, the one oligarch that doesn't get sanctioned is her, the woman that gave that money to the Bidens. And this is what you keep seeing with them, that if you're a crook anywhere in the world, if you want to get away with whatever you're doing, make sure you bribe the Biden family, because then you'll be in. You'll have immunity.
The change from currency systems to fully digital cashless societies has intensified fear around the world. In mid-September, Wells Fargo and Truist banks planned major layoffs as an impending 2024 recession has been predicted by many economists. Many analysts are predicting silver will hit an all-time high in 2024. That's why you need to own silver as a hedge. Green energy demand will possibly turbocharge silver prices to 50, 100, even 300 an ounce, according to many experts around the world. Silver is a proven hedge against inflation. Since 1971, silver has returned over 11% when averaged yearly. Hard Asset Management is a trusted leader in precious metals and rare coins for nearly 40 years. We have the guaranteed lowest prices, fast and easy ordering, expedited shipping, with award-winning customer service available 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. CST, Monday through Friday. So protect yourself from the chaos. Invest in stability with Hard Asset Management. Call now and get your free Hard Asset Management information kit on how easy it is for you to own silver. 844-426-4653. Free delivery and extra silver with every $10,000 bought. Use promo code 007.
You know what's so confounding, Tom, is the lack of morality in our government today. You know, this conversation we're having should offend your sense of decency, regardless of which side of the aisle you sit on. You know, I don't know what the break point is going to be on this. It appears that no matter what this administration does, that I believe there's 208 House of Representative members that are Democrats. They just rubber stamp it. Nothing seems to faze them. At some point, you have to step away from your agenda and take a look at the long-term effect this is going to have on our children, because that's really who's going to inherit all of this. I said in the last episode, our children will reap what we're sowing right now, folks. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. And I don't know what the next 10 or 20 years is going to look like in this country, because the leadership, to tell you the truth, is so lackluster that it's alarming. And so we're clear, Tom and I don't speak to you as Republicans or conservatives. We speak to you as Americans. I love this country. I've traveled extensively through South America and Europe and other parts of the world. You know, we have so much here that we take for granted. It's nauseating. You know, we just don't understand how other people live. Even within our own country, we have people that are completely in a bubble. Those are people they sometimes refer to as the 1%, or our elected officials for that matter. They live in a complete disconnect from what the rest of this country is experiencing on a day-to-day basis, whether it's the economy, you know, where your disposable income, for example. I kind of laugh. You know, the United Auto Workers are on strike because they need more money. Did you ever consider the reason you need more money is because this government shrunk your disposable income? And now we have Kaiser Pergamente, hope I said that right, on strike, right? Concerned about money. Maybe this government needs to do something that's in the best interest of this country instead of the Ukraine or any number of these other countries we seem to be so preoccupied with in helping. You know, the one country I think we are going to need to have to help is going to be Israel. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. I'll be candid with you. My perception is that I don't know if Israel has the ability to fend off all of these different assaults if they come from different angles. You know, the northern part of the country, the southern part of the country. It has a whole coast, a border that's you know, an exposure. And it has a lot of sentiment worldwide that's anti-Semitic. We need to dial this conversation down first and foremost in our own country. But, you know, we spoke in the last episode about people are coming out in support of Palestine. What is it that you didn't get about the nature or the extent of this invasion into Israel? It was horrifying. And you can call the media, as we do oftentimes, less than credible, but they're all on the same page on this one. You know, as best I can tell it. Something else I wanted to ask you about, Tom. The Hamas jihadists allegedly using UNICEF aid kits during the massacre in Israel. Is that true? You hear anything about this?
I don't know the details about that.
It was something that I'd heard about that I think is worth looking into. You know, last episode we also spoke about a group, Queers for Palestine. I mean, is everybody in a complete disconnect as to how Islam treats the LGBTQ plus community, that they throw you off buildings, gays? I mean, what the hell are you thinking about? We spoke about this last episode. I don't think we need to really belabor this conversation, but, you know, where are you getting your information from? Are you so biased or consumed with hate, or is it just pure ignorance? I do want to mention something else, Tom, talking about something we spoke about in the last episode. A high-ranking Israeli commander is addressing this U.S. weapons showing up in the hands of that are being sent to the Ukraine that are being used in Israel. Russia clearly has an interest in sending weapons to destabilize the Middle East. There's no ifs, ands, facts, nothing to doubt about that. What's your feelings on that, Tom?
Well, first of all, the largest arms merchant in the world historically has been the United States. So we've given weapons to, people that we're supporting all over the world. And then lo and behold, if some of their officials, generals, or the president or whoever are crooked, they start selling them off to make personal wealth out of our contribution to their military. But in the case of Ukraine, we're seeing that we've had criticism of the way that the administration has been supplying money and artillery and other military equipment to the Ukraine for not tracking it, for not having somebody in charge of making sure it goes where it's supposed to go in the Ukraine and doesn't get sold off, doesn't get siphoned off by their crooked politicians or crooked generals. And, we're hearing this over and over. Now, all of a sudden, the administration is saying, oh, okay, we're going to try and do something and track what we're sending over there, make sure it goes where it's supposed to. Well, about time. How many years now have we been throwing all this equipment out there, not knowing where it's going? Now, back to the issue with Palestine and the anti-Israel, for centuries, the basis for anti-Semitism in the Christian world was based on the belief that back in the time of Jesus, he was given up for crucifixion by the Jewish hierarchy at the time in Jerusalem, in the Holy Land, and that Christians have never forgiven Jews for killing Jesus, frankly, for 2,000 years. Well, that's fine if you want to look at it from Christians in Europe and their perspective on what the Jews allegedly did to Jesus. But how does that play into Islam? Because they don't believe, they believe Jesus was a prophet, but not the Messiah or anything at the level of what Catholics and Christians believe. So what's the problem there? What is the basis for now Islam, their hatred of Jews or their anti-Semitism? Where's that come from? I don't actually know completely where it comes from.
I'm having a problem understanding this global exercise in anti-Semitism. I mean, where the hell did this come from?
That's my point. Where's it come from?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, Tom, being born and raised in New York, I had friends from every walk of life. I've been, up front. Not that I need to be upfront about it, but we were the only white family in an all-black neighborhood. I happened to have benefited from that immensely. I had friends that were Jewish and Puerto Rican and from every side of the planet. In fact, the thing I tell people, which is somewhat laughable, one of my first buddies was a fellow Ira Goldberg. We met in a roller skating rink when I was about 10, 11 years old. And we were both characters. That's part of just growing up in New York. It's just the way it is. And, we palled around everywhere. We would go out on Saturday and Sunday after our fathers dropped us at the roller skating rinks and start to ride subways through the boroughs. And he went to Hebrew school and I went to Catholic school. We didn't quite understand. I guess we weren't supposed to get along, but I'm trying to figure out with as many friends that I have to this day that are Jewish, and some people who are Jewish have been incredibly great friends to me. I could tell you their names, but in deference to their privacy, I will not. But I don't understand this preoccupation, where this came from. A few years ago, I worked in the south of France. I had a client, wonderful client, Mr. Marin. He's passed since, so I'll mention his name now. William Marin is the chairman and CEO of Payne Weber, which was a very large brokerage firm. Great guy, great family. The anti-Semitism is just rampant, and I can't figure out why. What's your issue? Let me tell you some things I hear, okay, folks? They control the media. Okay. They control Hollywood. You know what I don't understand? If a particular demographic pursued something that was of interest to them, right? And through their hard work and their diligence, they managed to accomplish that task. Why are you so resentful of it? Why is it worth mentioning? You have the same opportunity that anybody Jewish has or Catholic has. or Puerto Rican has, or, you know, the only people I'm really concerned about today still, and I'm not going to go off on this tangent about blacks, to be honest with you, because, you know, we are still not addressing the disparity in which they live. Another conversation for another day. And I've had this conversation, by the way, but I don't understand this preoccupation of hating Jewish people. I don't get it, guys. I've never been on the short end of the stick as a result of any business dealings with anyone Jewish. In fact, truth be told, it's been everybody but. And I've had some incredible people who have been part of my support mechanism. In fact, I'll tell you something interesting. One of the gentlemen that helped finance the show along with me, I'm in the hole quite a bit of money to get this project up and running, happens to be Jewish. He's a good friend to me. He's a great guy, too. What's this preoccupation, guys? Maybe there needs to be a voice in the country that tries to explain to people that it's okay, we're different. Maybe we've kind of let in a demographic of people that have hate-filled hearts that are also anti-Semitic. I'm now going to talk about these demonstrations by people in New York, for example, just to start with, and I know they took place on college campuses and across the country, you know, Palestinians pro-Palestine. You know, guys, I hate to say this to you, but if you're so concerned about what's going on in Palestine, you can go back to Palestine and support their efforts. I don't understand why you think you have the right to come here and speak in a threatening manner or posture yourself in a way that is counterproductive towards another group of people, of which we have many in this country. I don't understand this. I don't understand why it's tolerated. And don't talk to me about free speech. Free speech doesn't license you to destabilize our cities and disrupt our cities. You can't run into a movie theater and yell fire. Why should you be allowed to disrupt the city of New York because of something, a demographic within your own community Hamas carried out? And if you think what they did is so wonderful, go back there and support them. Stop disrupting the United States. And the people in the United States, stop tolerating this. I don't understand what the hell to say. You know, I do want to say one thing to you. We have contained therein the Democrat Party, Tlaib Omar, Jayapal, excuse me. Recently, the House of Representatives member Omar is retweeting the false photos of Palestinian children being killed by Israeli forces. Look, guys, Tom and I spoke about this last episode. As in every conflict, including all world wars, in Vietnam and Korea, these conflicts, innocent people died. That's just the tragic reality of life. You know, we have an agenda within the Democrat Party that is anti-Semitic. If you go back to the Obama administration, Tom, and in a moment, I'm going to ask you to talk about monies that switched hands during that administration with Iran. Guys, we have to clear the thought process here and take a look and see the forest for the trees, guys. I said in the last episode, I say it again, and I've said it before. How does anyone that is of the Jewish faith support the Democrat Party? I never hear any outrage by Chuck Schumer, happens to be Jewish. Bernie Sanders happens to be Jewish. Nadler happens to be Jewish. There's quite a number of elected senators and congressmen that are Jewish. They never speak out against this. There's never any outrage. Young lady that was in charge of the DNC, Weinstein, right? Tom, help me with her name out of Miami.
Wasserman Schultz.
Wasserman Schultz. Thank you so much. You know, this is the cold medicine, folks. You know, where's the outrage? I don't hear a peep from them. I do want to tell you something really funny, though. Not that it's funny. Last week, I'm flipping through the channels because I listen to everyone. There's an expression, you keep your friends close, the enemy closer. Tragically, the media, who we haven't gotten off on in a couple of episodes, are at the root of the problem, and they're the enemy, believe me when I tell you. But I'm listening to the Morning Joe show, which I happen to have liked prior to this whole election cycle involving Donald Trump. And for 2 hours, they spoke about Donald Trump, guys. I don't know what to say to you. Let the guy go away if you're so unhappy with him. But this is the power of the media. I want to ask you, Tom, about Obama's administration and this transfer of funds or money to Iran. Give us a little background on this.
Well, I think the idea that they had was basically to appease Iran, Iran attempting to get the nuclear program and everything. And I think they looked at it like, well, we'll give them this money and billions of dollars, and then they'll behave, or they'll do more of what we want them to do, or not do the things that we wish they wouldn't do. And I think that typically appeasing, whether it's terrorist groups, terrorist countries, or the mafia for that matter, backfires. And you penalize yourself in the long run for trying to basically kiss their behind and do what they want and give them the money they want and the policies that they want and take away the sanctions that might be imposed and all of that type of thing. And then, let that happen. And now what's happened basically is Biden comes to power and he's Obama 3. He's going back to those kind of policies, which Trump had brought an end to during his administration. But now Biden comes back in and we're gonna appease Iran, and that'll benefit us. That'll be good for us. Well, it's not. It's not going to be. So the money that's going to Iran now, they've been one of the biggest funders of international terrorism there is. And, we knew that before. Trump, in fact, killed one of their top terrorists, Soleimani. And so now you have the Biden administration come in and basically, again, give them basically what they want.
Tom, what perplexes me is that, can we be this naive? I mean, seriously, how can we really, the first thing I want to say to you, Tom, is this. You and I have had the benefit of being attached to the law enforcement community, which gives you a whole different frame of reference and context in which you live. I mean, we look at things and we see things differently. How can they not understand that the Iranian government has demonstrated for decades, for generations, untrustworthiness? And suddenly you trust them? I mean, was he that naive? This is not a dumb man. This is a fairly well-educated person. And please don't let me remind you of what took place in the Kennedy years, the best and the brightest. I'm just telling everybody, look what the smart people have done to your country. But, Tom,
It's not a question. Lou, this isn't because they're smart or not smart. This is because basically deep down they're Marxists. And they're looking to bring down the United States from being the powerful country or the dominant country in the world. And Biden now is following in that same thing. I think what they're doing is on purpose. I don't think it's anything out of just naivete or they don't understand or they're ignorant. I think they know exactly the damage they're doing and do it on purpose.
Rare coin prices have exploded in the last 3 years. Hard Asset Management, one of the world's largest precious metals and rare coin dealer firms, makes recommendations on what to buy for collectors who know what they're looking for. We maintain one of the world's largest rare coin inventories for individuals seeking to diversify precious metals and rare coins. We can make strong recommendations in areas that we feel have the strongest potential for long-term growth. Call today, 844-426-4653 to receive our free Rare Coin newsletter or register online at bmcham.com. Free delivery and extra silver with every $10,000 bought. Use promo code 007.
Tom, tragically, I don't want to believe what you just said is true, but sadly it points in that direction. Tom, if we can, we have some comments from some of our individuals that have watched us on TikTok. One is Dems aren't interested in the truth or the oath they took. They're interested in money and control, and that's their only focus. And unfortunately, that's a fairly legitimate observation. It's difficult to explain what the agenda is of the Democrat Party today. I'm not anti-Democrat. I voted for Democrats in the past, to be very candid with you. And I'm going to openly tell you, it was when John McCain ran for president in 2008. They picked Sarah Palin, and nothing personal against Sarah. Probably a nice woman, don't know. But she wasn't ready for prime time. That much I can tell you. And that prompted me to vote for a Democrat. So no one's going to stand there and tell me you're a Republican. That's not the case. I want the best person, as Tom does, regardless of their gender, their ethnicity, even your lifestyle. If there was a transgender person who seems to be at the topic of conversation today, who is capable and competent enough to run the country and do the right thing by this country, I'd be happy to support you. Your personal life discussion for another day. Here's another observation someone brought to our attention as a concern of theirs. they state, it seems so sad to see criminals walk away freely without being charged. What that statement is attached to is this occurrence that's taking place primarily in our major cities. And the reason I say our major cities, because in the state of New York, for example, we have bail reform, which isn't a city law. The city of New York is a state law. So what the city is experiencing, other municipalities or jurisdiction in New York are experiencing as well. People are committing crimes and they're allowed to be let go. Illinois, for example, Pritzker, the governor, just signed no cash bail, which is the same thing. And so ironic is that both cities now are up screaming about how uncontrolled the crime is in their cities. Well, guys, you have to repeal this law. It's at the root of this problem of not prosecuting the criminal element. Tragically, what's attached to this thought process is that this is some form of reparation for the minorities, because if you take a look at the demographic that is mostly participating in much of these extreme examples of theft, they're minorities. And guys, I want to remind you of something. You're feeding a narrative that some people want to believe, that minorities are all bad. That isn't the case. 99% in minority communities, and I know this because I lived and worked, are good people. We have a small percentage of that community that's engaged in these practices. But this notion that this is some form of reparation, boy, is that ill-conceived. Another observation that just came to us is in reference to our elected officials. To make it quite simple, they all need to go away, reset the government. Probably right about that, and I'm wondering if somewhere in the founding fathers' thought process was the notion that we might have to reset the government. Maybe that is the case. What do you think about that, Tom?
I think we need to reset the public. Who voted for these idiots and put them in office, knowing that they were going to do these policies? They didn't keep it a secret what their policy would be if they got in, and they get in and then they do it. And everybody's like, oh, I'm shocked and outraged. How'd that happen? How could this be? So I think that I don't put all the blame on the politicians, put a lot of it on them, but I put more of it on the voters. They should know better, especially in a place. We look at Chicago, my beloved hometown. They have Lori Lightfoot as the mayor, complete idiot. And she's the first mayor in 30 years to not get reelected when she's up against her other opponents. In Chicago, you have the top two vote getters go up against each other in a runoff. She came in third out of three, so she was out. The two that are running against each other, one is more of a moderate Democrat, and I say that loosely, and one is the typical extreme, anti-law enforcement, anti-everything. That's the person Chicagoans elect to be their mayor. And I'm like, how stupid can you be? What is with you people that you didn't get the number of murders on the streets of Chicago, the number of criminals getting away free, now Pritzker wanting a law, wanting no bail in his bail reform. Yeah, that worked out really well in New York. Do you have TV or radio in your house, Governor? How can you not know the ramifications of these stupid policies that are going to let criminals be on the street perpetually to prey on the public?
Tom, I go back and I say this on a fairly frequent basis, and I do believe this because you and I both know this, what's going on in our cities. These are minority-based cities, and they're voting for Democrats, which is absolutely perplexing because the Democrats don't give a good goddamn about you. Not the Republicans do. Neither one does, truth be told. But you continuously vote for a political entity that does nothing but put your children at harm every day. The collateral damage issue, these poor children that are shot in these drive-bys and these drug-related incidents.
Yeah.
And
now,
it's
remember Trump's campaign slogan, I guess, in 2016, where he was asking the same thing and basically saying, vote Republican. You've been voting for these people over and over and over, and they've ruined your community. They've done nothing for you. In his famous line, what the hell do you have to lose? Vote for me. What do you have to lose? Because you're not getting anything by voting for these other guys.
Tom, and that you brought that up, I believe it was verified that the unemployment rate in the minority community and the black community in particular is the lowest it's been like in 50 years. But the thing I want to say, guys, is that at some point, we're going to have to heal this wound in the minority community and take a little bit of responsibility and not dwell on the fact that we made a mistake, but learn from the mistake and push forward, which is how I kind of live every day. But it would behoove the Republicans to get off their rear ends and start to speak to the local elected officials and the clergy and the community leaders in general and explain to them, guys, don't you see what you got going on here? Now, I will say this, there are more and more prominent black community leaders that realize they've been had by the Democrats, period. I'm not saying that because I'm a Republican. If the Republicans were guilty of this agenda, I'd be saying the same thing. Guys, this is not attached to a political party because I'm the opposite party. I just happen to be telling you the damn truth. This is what's going on in our own country. So this individual's observation that, crime is going unaddressed is absolutely correct. And Tom's observation that the same community that is a victim of these policies continues to vote in the people who promote the policies. There's no other way to say it. It's going on in Chicago, New York, LA. Not to go off on LA right now, but I had a chuckle, like they dropped a busload of migrants in LA and Karen Bass had a heart attack. That's because she's got 70,000 homeless people living in the streets of Los Angeles, a lot of mental illness in Los Angeles as well. These are fixable problems, guys. We don't spend enough time, to be very candid with you, and we're going to kind of readdress that on telling you how to fix this problem. And part of it has to do with investing in a proper way in our minority communities, for example, in our borders. What we're going to do about this debacle we caused in our energy sector, which is why your gasoline is more than $2 a gallon higher than it was 3.5 years ago, almost 4 years ago. And in California, gas is $7 a gallon. I don't know what to say, except we can fix these problems. You have to become part of the conversation. You have to detach yourself from that political lens you look through, this word called loyalty towards the Republicans and the Democrats, and just pursue the truth and understand this. It's ultimately going to translate to the future of your children. There's a generation, if you're 60 and above, you're probably going to get out of this thing with probably without bumps and bruises. But this younger generation of people, boy, they're in for a hayride because this doesn't seem to be getting better. That's the whole purpose of this conversation. We want to remind you guys, and I hate to be negative about it, there aren't many positive things to talk about today in this country because, as Tom and I joke about, it's like they compile a list of things we can do wrong today. Then we go out and make sure we do every one of them. And it's just, I don't know what to tell you. Fixable problems. You have to vote, guys. The answer isn't in violence. And I am concerned, and Tom is concerned, and other people I know, that we're going to end up in another civil war or some form of secession, which I think is highly likely. You'll end up picking a quadrant or a geographical area in this country that is of your political liking. You'll hunker down there, kind of like they do in Europe, I guess. Maybe you're allowed to be able to go back and forth to other states or entities, however they'll refer to us, but the bow is going to break at some point. And guys, I do want to say one thing to you that I speak to you about all the time. We've overpopulated the country. We're at a point where we can't manage the people that we have. To add to it, we're letting people in by the millions, almost every 4 or 5 or 6 months. I mean, I guarantee you there are more than 10 million people have illegally entered this country. I remind you of something I say to you all the time. You keep hearing about the southern border. Any mention about the majority of the individuals who violate our immigration laws, overstaying visas, any conversation about the northern border, we conveniently sidestep those. I don't know why Republicans don't remind you of this. Why do Tom and I have to remind you of it? We're not out here to promote the Republican agenda. We are conservative people, especially when it comes to your safety. That's what Tom and I have dedicated our lives to, protecting people. That's what we have done for 50 years, Tom. Correct me if I'm wrong. 50 years. Am I right, sir?
Well, 36 years as a sworn officer. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then another 15 or 20 consulting back to law enforcement executives all over the world.
In this community for over 50 years of protecting you. That's what our agenda is. The rest of the socially sensitive issues that Republicans don't seem to understand, they have to wrap their arms around at some point. We're not into that. If you want to have a relationship with the same sex, go do it in privacy, do it in peace, do it in happiness. That's what I wish for you. I really don't care. I told you the transgender issue to me is hilarious because I hung around in Studio 54 in the late 70s and early 80s, and we had everybody of every walk of life in the place, and nobody cared. Everybody went in there with the agenda of having a great time. I wish our country could figure out how to all live together and have a great time and not be threatened by our differences. We need an immigration policy, one that doesn't lend itself to swimming the Rio Grande. Or, you know, Tom, one thing we didn't talk about, which we're going to talk about in the next show, is operational control. We have lost operational control of the southern border. If you don't believe Tom and myself, and we're going to speak to you about this next episode, maybe you want to listen to some of your Customs and Border Patrol officials or other government officials that will tell you this. We have cartels in our country today. We're going to leave it on that note. This has been Operation Truth. I encourage you to become part of this conversation. OperationTruthOfficial@gmail.com. Send in your responses. Guys, we're not looking for people that are just like-minded to us, that are more conservative when it comes to the protection and preservation of this country and the future of our children. We're looking for people that think differently than we do. Maybe we can have something that's not taking place today, a civil, decent, respectful conversation, because the only thing we've seemed to master the art at is rhetorically cutting each other's throat, insulting each other, and demeaning each other. It gets you nowhere. We have to have this mindset of compromise. Everybody's got to walk away knowing that their concerns were considered and addressed. This has been Operation Truth. Again, I remind you, OperationTruthOfficial@gmail.com will give you the avenue into us so you can start to participate in this conversation. Guys, we're not doing this because we don't have better things to do. We are both gravely concerned about the future of this country and the future of our children. Tom and I could walk off into the sunset. Trust me, we're both positioned to do that. But we're giving this a shot. Maybe we can get this country on a different footing, independent of the politics and the agenda and the media that's leading the charge and destroying this country. See you next week, guys. Thank you for joining us. Tom, thank you as always, sir.
Thank you, Lou.